5th. That makes sense. Hey, love it. Love it. All right. Good morning, guys. Welcome to our latest Mornings with Mayesh. It's Yvonne here, and thank you so much for joining us. I am here today with famed botanical artist Joseph Massie. Yes, the designer who has won 5 Chelsea Flower Show gold medals. So excited to have him on the show, guys. And I am going to give everyone a few minutes to join us before we get started. While we are waiting, please, as usual, say hello. Let us know where you are from. I have a feeling we might have a wide range of people from all over the world, and I love that. That makes it so fun and exciting, our little floral world here gathered on Facebook Live. Also, if you are new and to our show and never watched before, if you have questions for Joseph or for myself, go ahead and post those in the comments, and if we have time, we will definitely cover them. Sound good? Hi, Janine. Hi, Dee. How are you guys? Also, if you're new, I just wanted to let you know that we will post this replay along with the podcast and our show notes. And I have some beautiful photos from Joseph as well of his work, and those will all be on our blog. So that will go up either today or tomorrow. It just usually depends on how crazy my day is after I hang up on this show. Sound good? Also, last but not least, make sure that you subscribe to our email. That way you know what's going on, whether it's a show or any new features. Like just recently, we just had this new feature up on our website. I keep on calling it new, but it isn't that new anymore. We have this cool new star feature on our shopping cart, and for all of our assorted boxes that have specific varieties in it. So I know it's like, a shopping feature, not too crazy, but still something exciting and fun. Also, I wanted to show you guys, did you see this that I photographed and posted on Instagram? I just wanted to show you in real life. I love it. People are loving it. Pretty much everyone loved it. There's a few naysayers. I said yay or nay, a couple nays. But for the most part, these people loved them. And so these bad boys, my husband in Miami, bought all the boxes that were available. And so those should be available hopefully next week. So I'll keep you guys posted. And again, if you're subscribed to our email, you'll know when those are in. All right. There we go. I'm going to hide that. And let's get started, shall we? Good morning, Joseph. How are you?
Good morning. I am really, really good, Yvonne. And thank you so much for asking me to be here today.
Oh, thank you for coming. I'm just so excited. I feel like I have a famous person on my show today. So
I feel that way too. Seriously. Thank you. No, it's always a pleasure to be able to sit down and meet new people and have a chat about all things in the flower world, in our industry, and especially with everything going on right now. It's always good, I think, just to connect with people and, see what's going on.
Exactly. So before we get started into our interview, Joseph, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your floral story and how you're here today with us?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Joseph Massie. My friends call me Joe, so that's you, of course. And I've been in the floral industry for about 15 years now. So my story actually started when I was 14 years old, and I started off working on a flower stall in my hometown of Liverpool in England. I didn't want a Saturday job. I had no interest in a Saturday job or any interest in floristry or gardening or anything of that nature. But I just kind of got into it. I wanted a weekend job, and that was the only place that was hiring. And then from there, I just kind of caught the bug, to be honest. I absolutely loved it. And at the very beginning, as you can imagine, all I was doing was scrubbing buckets and processing flowers, like all the super non-glamorous things. And then over time, I kind of really started to be able to figure out how to make things and how to do things. And that was really the start for me. So yeah, I started right at the very bottom, age 14, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's amazing. And so Age 14. I can't even imagine that. Like, that's where your story started, and that's where you found your love for flowers. And I think that's amazing that I think it's important that when people start in the floral industry, they understand kind of all the hard work that also has to go behind it, like the scrubbing the buckets and sweeping the floors, the piles of stems that are all over the place. I feel like a lot of people who look at our industry from the outside, they don't really understand that, all of the dirty work that's involved with it. It's backbreaking and not always so glamorous.
I mean, to be honest, is it anything but dirty work? Like you could apply that to my whole life, to be honest with you. No, I'm joking. Well, for me, that was exactly the case. Like I started right at the bottom, conditioning, scrubbing buckets, and it was actually only because one of the other florists happened to leave. They left to go to like a different flower shop, and so I started to, ask, oh, can I help out a bit more and learn how to make a hand-tied bouquet and all of those type of like, really kind of beginning things. From there, I decided that I kind of really wanted to pursue it. So I actually went to study it in a green college here in the UK. Now, I know that you guys don't usually have those in the US. And by a green college, I mean like almost like a horticultural college where
Okay.
we study like gardening, landscape design, floral design, all of that kind of stuff. So I studied there, and here in the UK, we can actually study for 5 years to be a florist. So you study from level one through to level five. I did my level one and two consecutively because I had a fair bit of experience. And then I went from there really. But I started getting my first big break actually when I started doing floral design competitions, which like I had no idea were even a thing. But yeah, that was my very first kind of big break, I guess.
Very cool. So I know, I feel like floral design competitions are a bigger thing in Europe than they are here. I know we have some, but I don't feel like
Mhm.
it gets the fanfare that it does in Europe. Can you talk a little bit about that and that journey for
Mhm.
you and why you decided to really immerse yourself in that?
Of course. Well, I mean, first things first, I don't turn up if there's no fanfare. If there's not fanfare, I'm not going to be there. So competitions are definitely the place for me to begin. I'm
Yeah.
joking, obviously.
Some people have that competitive flair. They want to beat everyone, So, you know, combine
No,
that with forestry, it's pretty cool.
it's very lethal. No, I'm joking. Well, for me, I guess it was really a good way for me to test my skills, test out new ideas, and really get to do something creative. Because at this time, I was maybe 17, 18 years old when I did my very first competition. And I was working in a flower shop, and even though like the day-to-day work was fun and really enjoyable, it was very much a case of me maybe, being on a little bit of the same old treadmill, so what I decided to do was to enter some of these competitions. And the first competition I entered, I remember it so clearly. It was in a magazine. It was, "Are you the young florist of the year?" And I was like, "Yes, I am. Like that's got to be me." So I entered the competition, and I actually came fifth place. And I kind of thought to myself, "All right, well, fifth place, it's not incredible, but it was a starting point." And I thought maybe if I do a little bit more, I'll get a little bit better. And that's been a theme of my whole career, to be honest with you. Is kind of I'm not a quick learner. I'm not the best at doing anything straight away, as you found out when we did the technology test for this show today.
It's all good.
It takes me a while to it takes me a while to figure out exactly, kind of what I'm doing. And it was the same with competitions. But what I got from that was really there were so many benefits from putting myself out there. Enabled me to really apply myself to some really interesting challenges. It enabled me to try some great techniques. It got some incredible feedback, and it really started to shape my design vocabulary, something which I'm like a huge believer in. And overall, it was just like the best thing for me. So I actually won my first national competition when I was 18, I think I was 17 or 18. And then I won my first international when I was 20. So yeah, it became like a huge thing for me.
I love it. That's so exciting. And when you did those competitions, were there certain themes? Like, what was your favorite competition that you won?
Oh my
Do you have a
gosh. So
favorite?
I was always in love with two main things. One, anything bridal designed, because I was such a fan of really beautiful technique, and I still am to this day. So whenever bridal work, as I'm sure you know, tends to have the finest, most delicate, most detailed, most precision-based technique. And I loved that because it was a great opportunity for me to kind of show off what I could do. So anything bridal, I loved and still do to this day. And also anything weirdly as well, in complete opposite, also anything really, really big. So any big installation pieces or big sculptural, structural things, anything like that. And I was like, I am your man. So yeah, they were my two favorite things for sure.
I love it. I love it. So I know obviously finding that love for wedding work has probably shaped what your business looks like today. And I know like we're in the midst of a pandemic. And do you want to talk a little bit about what your business looks like right now and how it's changed since COVID hit?
Yeah, sure thing. So my business nowadays, it's very much a continuation from my earlier journey doing competitions. Like when
Mhm.
I was a competitor in my early 20s, I was in retail, then I moved into private events, and then I worked in New York for a little bit. And I was continuing competing through all of those years, but I was kind of adamant that I really didn't want to start a company until I was 25. I don't know why, but I had this kind of idea in my head that I just wanted to kind of experience as much as I can before I kind of took the leap.
Right.
So 5 years ago, I came back from a job in America and I decided to start my own company. And to be very honest with you, like I didn't have too much of a plan of exactly what I wanted to do or how I wanted it to go, right? Like I knew I wanted it to involve flowers, but I was like, should I open a retail store? Should I open a flower school? Should it be a design studio? Like I really had no idea of kind of what would fit me best. And that's something that I've always kind of done throughout my career is when you're in doubt, like just try a little bit of something and smell what sells. You know what I mean? Like see
Right.
what works and kind of don't, if it doesn't work, then try something else. So now we have kind of like 4 points to the business, I guess. We have our flower school, where we run hands-on classes and workshops in our school in England. We also have some online classes as well, which are just launching, which is super exciting. We have a flower studio where we do luxury and celebrity weddings and events, which is very cool and very fun. And then we also have like the art side of the business as well, which is where I kind of do more installations and more sculptures. And like the final bit, I guess that ties it in is me. So when I'm doing like lectures or when I'm writing or when I'm doing just generally being around being a flower person. That's kind of what
Right.
it is. So yeah.
I love that. I love just being a flower person. And I like what you said, smell what sells. That's fun. I haven't heard that before.
I think I got that off like an episode of The Apprentice or something. Like I was like, oh, that's really good. Like,
I like that.
the UK version, not the American, but they were good.
So, talk a little bit about the artwork piece of your business because I feel like that's very interesting and very different than what a lot of designers do here.
Yeah, so I mean, to be very honest with you, it started off completely by accident. Like, I was always with my design work and with my competitions, I felt that I was always very much pushing the boundaries a little bit. God, how arrogant of me, pushing the boundaries. But I felt that I was always going like away from the flowers a little bit and always pushing it like to more towards like a structural or sculptural kind of area.
Mhm.
And over time, I just kind of realized that actually maybe I would be better off actually viewing things as sculpture or viewing things as installations. And so now about 50% of our business is actually art based, doing in sculpture or installation for clients. And most of our pieces have to have like a 25-year guarantee on them. So we're not talking about, a vase of flowers and it's kind of left in position. We're talking about big sculptures or big installations for I don't know, big reception spaces or hotels or private residences. I'm doing a
Right.
huge project at the minute. Actually, I can't talk too much about it because it hasn't been installed yet. But my biggest
So,
sculpture that I'm doing at the minute is absolutely. I'll tell you guys, but don't tell anybody else.
thank you. Yes.
Um, so the biggest thing I'm working on at the minute, it's actually it's going to be 30 feet tall, this sculpture. So it's going to be about 10 meters, and it's actually for a cruise ship that we're working on. So I can't say anything more than that, but that's going to be a pretty big piece of work. So
Awesome.
it's
Are
fun
you,
because it really is. It's an extension of what we do. It's all
yeah,
design based. It's all artistic based. It's just using botanical materials and in a new way.
I love that. Are you allowed to tell us when it's going to be done around so we can look for it?
Sure, yeah. So it was gonna be done for around about July, and then obviously COVID happened. So
Right.
we're thinking it might be August, September now. It's taking place in another country as well. So there's there's travel restrictions and shipping restrictions that we're just working around at the minute. But yeah, so I mean, to be honest with you, like this kind of work, it started, like, don't get me wrong, I didn't just start one day and decide I'm gonna make a 30-foot tall sculpture. Like, it very much started off with smaller pieces, with more, sculptural forms and playing around with materials. And I started off doing some wall pieces, and then it moved bigger and bigger. And I think you can apply that same kind of principle to a lot of floral design, right? Like, whenever
Yeah.
you're trying anything in your business, start small and see what happens.
Amazing. Okay. So when we were getting ready for the show, you said something about creativity is really your superpower. Can you expand on that? Because I love that. I feel like you need to wear a
Uh,
cape.
Oh my gosh, you're throwing yourself at me. Okay, um, so what I usually mean by that, I kind of wear it as if creativity is just such an incredible thing that I think kind of every floral designer kind of underplays in themselves, you know? And I think in some ways, I think when we're working with floral materials, when we're designing a beautiful wearable piece or an incredible bouquet or bridal bouquet, or maybe it's an installation for a celebration, I often think that your creativity is really what sets you apart, right? Because we can all kind of source the same kind of flowers, and we can all source the same kind of like base mechanics and vases and materials. So a lot of it, I think, is about using and harnessing your creativity in a way that so it's a really great representation of what you do, and so that it's fulfilling for you as well, right? Because I don't know about you, but I'm a big believer that life is way too short to do anything you're not really particularly fond of.
Yes.
So for me, like that's one of the main principles in my business, I guess. If it's not a good fit aesthetically, if it's not a good fit creatively, if it doesn't fulfill us in some way, then we don't do it.
I totally agree with you. Which really ties into kind of what we were talking about earlier with Kristen Vanderia a couple weeks ago. He talked about how people really can heal through creativity. And, you were talking about artistic fulfillment and also how that's important for your well being and the bottom line.
Mhm.
So, do you want to expand on that even more and talk about how that ties into your revenue streams for your business?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I agree with the principle that creativity can be healing.
Yeah.
And I think, given everything we're seeing in the world right now, I think that's an incredibly true point, to be honest. But I
Yes.
also think I would take that statement further. I would probably
Mhm.
say that creativity and the expression of creativity, it can really make or break your business, and it can really either like fill you up so you're in a position to give more and do more and create more, or maybe if it's not in alignment, you can find it to be a little bit of a burden, right?
Right.
For me, creativity and the expression of creativity, it's all about finding a medium that speaks to you and something that fulfills you aesthetically, fulfills you emotionally. But also, I find that when they happen, it usually is very nicely in alignment with your business, right? So, a great
Mhm.
example would be maybe working with brides or clients who really fit your aesthetic. So, for example, like there's a few steps that we take in my company to make sure that a bride is a really good fit for us. We have a downloadable lookbook, which all our brides, download prior to a meeting so they can get a feel for what our aesthetic is. We have a great client vetting process, a client questionnaire system, and a pre-interview, just so we can get a great idea of whether they're a good fit for us. And then usually that ends up resulting in much more successful weddings and collaborations, right? I do think that creativity can be healing, absolutely, but I think that it can have a greater impact upon our business, upon our satisfaction, and upon the way we kind of operate in the world. And for me, that starts with knowing who you are and knowing what you stand for. And getting a really good sense of what your creativity looks like. So I use the words a lot, design vocabulary, as in
Mhm.
kind of what are the kind of key principles or key visual notes that really kind of tie in your own design vocabulary. And I think that's something that as floral designers, right, we could take a lot of inspiration from fashion houses. So if you look at Chanel, you immediately think of interlocked C's, or you think of pearls, or you think of tweed. Or if you think of Gucci, you think of, the horse bit, you think of the red and the green, and you think of the like the bamboo handle, or it's all about those little individual kind of visual notes that I think as floral designers we could really kind of look to create our own vocabulary around and then bring it into our business. And I mean, that's something that we've very much tried to do with my company. And it's put us in a really good place.
Love it. Amber says, yes, creativity fills my bucket and my pocket. I like that.
We should hang out and get cocktails, Amber. I like the sound of that.
So good. If you guys have any questions for Joseph while we're talking to, please post those in the comments and we'll get to them. Okay, so I know sustainability is something that's very important to you. How has that shaped how you do things?
Okay, so all cards on the table. Sustainability was not something that I particularly was looking at, I would say, until about 3-ish years ago in my company. And it was actually when I met a really good friend of mine, Toby Nelson, who is based in Whidbey Island, just off Seattle. And she is a huge advocate for sustainable floral design. And it was actually through meeting her that I kind of realized, actually, you know what? I could do a whole lot better in my company to make sure that I am not just serving myself, my staff, and my clients, but to make sure that we're having a pretty decent impact on the world as well. So one of the main things that we do is we have like a 5-point sustainability practice, which we actually have on our flower design website and our school website, so that any of our students or any of our clients can see kind of what we're doing to kind of limit our impact upon the environment. Some things can be super simple, like, for example, limiting the use of one-use plastics, right? So that could be simple as like reusing chicken wire or reusing water picks or something like that.
Right.
And another thing can be really looking at your buying process, really looking to buy from local growers or growers that are native to your country of origin. I think that can be super important too. I have to be honest with you, like Yvonne, I think sustainability it can be used as like a little bit of a hot kind of buzzword by some people.
Yep.
And I really don't want to like come across in that way, like, oh, he's dropping the green card kind of thing. But
Mhm.
I really think it's quite easy to implement. We're dealing with natural product, and with a few changes to our company and the way we do business, I think we can really benefit both your company and the wider environment, right? I think it's
Yep.
pretty easy to do.
Yeah, it's definitely been something we've been talking about over the years as well, just as a wholesaler. And we know that our industry, for being based on botanicals and nature, it's very wasteful and can be harmful to the environment. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's something that we've been talking about, trying to figure out what we can do as a company, but definitely trying to just have this conversation with more people. And our design star Anthony Maslow, he also is trying to implement more sustainable practices in his business, and something that's important to him. And our um, video for this month, he did this hanging, floating
I've,
art.
I've seen it. It's
Yeah,
like an archway, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but he brought on a special guest from Common Raw, and he composts all of his floral waste, which I think is really great and something that a lot of people can look at to do as well. I know a lot of even our branches have looked at like how can we compost our waste, and so that way that's
Mhm.
better as well for the earth.
But
So I
don't you
like,
think though those points are all really simple, like to implement?
yes,
You know what I mean? Like
yes.
they're not incredibly difficult. It's not like we're asking people to go back to school and you study for 5 years. Like there's small steps that you can take, which make you feel good. They make your company greener, and they help the wider world. So yeah, I think it's super important.
Yeah, yeah, just being aware, and then again, doing things with intention. I feel like that's something that I've been talking about for weeks lately, but just, having that in the forefront of your mind, and then again, doing it with intention, not just, I think it's easy to get caught up, even like with my own job, it's just easy to get caught up in what you're doing in like the everyday and just keeping up and trying to do. But like if you plan for it, then there's, better chance of you following through. So
100%,
yeah.
100%. Preach,
Yes.
Yvonne.
Woo woo. All right. So I know we've talked a little bit about education. I know you've
Hmm.
talked about you've started from when you were 14 years old. So, and I know we're going to dive into more education here in a bit, but for those people who are just starting out in the floral industry, or even for our veterans, do you have any thoughts on floral careers and what would you tell your younger self? Like, if you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self? Like, okay, this is something that you should think about, or the path you should take, or things that you should do or look at.
Mm, that is such a great question. If it were me, what would I tell my younger self? Oh my gosh. I think the thing that I would tell myself if I was 14 years old or 16 years old, I would say do not limit yourself in any way, shape, or form because the floral world is so big and there are so many opportunities and so many ways in which you can take our creativity and our practice. I think the world is really your oyster when you work with flowers. And that is a complete contradiction to what a lot of the world told me when I was 14, 15, 16. So when I was a teenager, maybe when I was like 14 years old, we have to do this thing in school called like picking your career options, where you sit down and like pick your subjects that you're going to study like later on.
Right.
And I did this, and the career kind of advisor that I had, she was like, just so you're aware, like when I said, what do you want to be? I was like, oh, I think I want to be a florist. She
Mhm.
was like, no, no. She was like, you have to go to university. Like, you could be a doctor, you could be like a lawyer, whatever you want to be. Like, no, like floristry is like minimum wage. It's like a really bad career. And I was like, no, that's what I really, really want to do. And luckily, my family was super supportive. My mom, she is a nursery nurse, and
Mhm.
she always followed what she wanted to do. Like being a nursery nurse in the UK, that's not like an incredibly well paid, job. But
Right.
she loved kids, and that was what she wanted to do. And she kind of said to me, if that's what you want to do, then absolutely go for it. So that was what I did. And I think that's what I would tell my younger self. I would say working with flowers is a creative practice. It is a profession. It can be an art form. It can be an applied art. It can be fine art, and really, you can do whatever you want to with it, from incredible sculptures and installations to creating beautiful bridal bouquets. So I would say to my younger self and to anybody else listening, don't limit yourself at all, because I think with the right education and I think with the right intentions and the right, a lot of hard work, I think you can pretty much do anything you set your mind to, right?
Yeah, totally agree. I love it. I love talking about education. I love talking to people like yourself who speaks very well, who's very passionate, who wants to be part of educating
You
our industry.
you are so flirty. I have to tell you, so flirty with me
Don't
today.
tell
I
my
mean,
hubby.
I'm sorry, I'm joking, of
No,
course.
it's all good. But no, in all seriousness, like, how did you find yourself in this role? So, like, for example, I talk to people about this all the time. Like Brad Beck from Design Master, he is an amazing speaker. He sings songs and tells stories so well. And I always ask him how he did that. And he spent a lot of time with Toastmasters. And Kristen Vanderyacht, who I just referenced a little bit ago, his mom was a speech therapist and would correct him and make him say everything very, very, finite. Like this is how you say it. And so he turned into this amazing speaker. I'm growing. I'm not a great speaker. It's been something I've been working on over the years, and I've gotten comfortable in front of the camera. And as you said, like I'm just go with it. Like if something bad happens, if I stutter or if the camera turns off, I just roll with it because I just know that's the way it is. So
Mhm.
everyone has like their different path and
Yeah.
done. So how did you find yourself kind of interested in the educator role and being comfortable talking in front of people?
Gosh, that's an excellent question. I would say that for me, I never kind of set out to work in education or to be an educator at all. It actually started after I won my first gold medal and Best in Show at Chelsea Flower Show. That's when I started to get the invitations to, do you want to come and do a guest lecture, or do you want to come and do a demonstration or presentation? So for me, it happened very, very naturally. And as I continued to win more awards and more medals and everything else, that was when it kind of really kicked up a notch, I guess. Because when you win those kind of awards, doors open, like opportunities are there. And for me, it was something that I really had to do a couple of times to really get myself in a space where I felt that I could do it really, really well and really effectively, because I had been, I had the huge privilege of being taught by some of the world's best floral designers, people like Gregor Lurch, Ellie Lynn, Hert Patan, incredible floral designers. I'm certainly someone who takes the craft and this profession incredibly seriously. And I'm not about just throwing some flowers around or hoping for the best or in any way being blasé about the profession of our industry and about the professionalism that we hold, right? I think that's so important. And so for me, I'd kind of had the experience of being taught by some incredible tutors. And I guess a little bit of it was trying to emulate them, and a little bit of it was watching a lot of YouTube videos on how to structure a lesson and how to teach. And I guess the final ingredient is really teaching from what you know, right?
Right.
I will never ever do a class or never accept an assignment where it's teaching something that it's not aligned with me. It's not a good fit for me. It doesn't fit with my aesthetic or my brand or what I do, my creativity. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
And nowadays, I mean, in the past year, I've had the privilege of lecturing at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, the Cleveland Museum of Fine Art. Now I get to do some incredible speaking opportunities. And when I'm at these institutions, I kind of pinch myself. Like, I kind of want to say to them, like, are you aware that I started off on a flower stall age 14? Like, that's where I began, like in a northern town in England. Like, I'm not from a wealthy background in any way, shape, or form, or a privileged, a rich background in any way, shape, or form. And so for me, it was very much a case of having a lot of these pinch yourself moments. It reminds you to try and be grateful, and to be really thankful for every opportunity that you get.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I have goosebumps. Very good.
Oh, stop it. Your husband, stop it.
He might be listening. We'll see. He always seems to call when I have these shows, like for some reason. He knows when I have them, and he'll still call me. Um,
No, fair enough.
yeah. So I know obviously educational opportunities, finding those has played a significant role in your growth as an artist. Can you discuss that value and what it means to you?
Sure. So, excellent question again, I have to say. You have done some good homework here.
Oh,
I have to
thank
say
you.
that.
Thank you.
I would say I take education so seriously because I've seen the benefits of it, right? So when I started off doing my first floral design competitions, and when I started off doing my very first installations and things, it was important for me to know what I was doing, because nobody gets rewarded for fluffing it, for kind of not knowing, what you're doing. And I know from my own experience that if you feel really, really strong in what you know, if you feel strong in your techniques, in your methodology, in your understanding of the principles and elements of what you're doing, it makes you feel a million times more confident and a million times more competent. And I know that to be true a million times over, not just in floral design, but in whatever your creative pursuit is, right?
Hmm.
And that's why I think I respect education so much. And that's why I think it's so important. Also, because if I can say something a little controversial here, because I sometimes feel that floral designers or florists, whichever term you use, they can sometimes be looked down on as kind of not that great a profession, right? Or
Hmm.
not the most professional of professions. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think as floral designers and as floral educators and as people who work in the floral wedding and event industry, I think we have a duty to ourselves and to our profession to really raise the professionalism of our industry. And that starts with great education. It starts with knowing your principles and elements. It starts with knowing your proportions and your placements. It starts with knowing the techniques and the history of our craft and using it at every opportunity to be seen as a professional in your business, in your community, and in the wider world. I wouldn't have the life that I do. I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have if I got on stage and was like, oh, I just throw this here, or oh, I just make it pretty. Like, if I did that, like, oh my gosh, could you imagine what my students would say or what my
Right.
audiences would say? Like, they'd be like, why is he here? Like, it's fun, but what else is it? You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
sometimes I think that flowers can be their own worst enemy, you know, in the fact that they're already so beautiful. So we kind of have to work a little bit harder to kind of show that we know what we're doing, I guess. My great friend Sue McCleary, she is a big fan of really kind of sticking up for the professionalism of the industry,
Mhm.
and I am completely behind her in that marching band. I think that the more professional we all are in every aspect of what we do, will only benefit that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and I love Sue. I feel like she's a pioneer, really, of our industry, just because she's so giving with everything that she has in her brain in terms of design. And
Hmm.
she explained when she went to Quito, Ecuador, with us, oh gosh, last year.
Hmm.
And she was explaining that she is like that because she just always wants to be coming up with new mechanics and new design ideas. And that's her way of kind of purging everything from herself. So that way it makes room for new things and new growth, which I love that
Hmm.
philosophy of how she lives her life. I think that's just really cool.
I think as well, like a big part of it for, I wouldn't say I'm the same as Sue in necessarily that respect, but for me, it's the fact that I get bored super quickly. So I love to be innovating. I love to be doing things that are different, and I really, really love to be, you know, trying to push things forward.
Yeah,
So for me, it's more about avoiding boredom. You know, I
right.
don't want to be stood at the workbench doing the same things day in day out. I don't want to be doing the same thing consistently. I want to constantly be, let's push and do something different and really have like more of a renaissance view of things rather than just doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's important in pretty much every profession. I know, like for myself, I'm not a designer or a florist or anything like that. I've designed
Hmm.
flowers before, but don't really consider myself a florist. But in my career here at Mayesh, and one of the reasons I've been here for so long is because I always get to learn something new and try different things and just again like move on and evolve and grow. So that's one of the reasons why I've been so happy here is because of that. And I just think it's important because if you're staying still and doing the same thing every day and you're not growing, you're meant to grow and evolve. And I
A
just think,
a
yeah,
hundred
people are
percent.
miserable. Yeah, people are miserable doing things that they do for like so
No,
majority
girl.
part of their
No,
life.
girl.
Yeah, and
No,
that's
girl.
why.
Life is way too short. Like,
Yes.
I'm always of that opinion. Life is too short. Like, seize the opportunity while it's there. Like, okay, so during a conversation, and if I'm hanging with friends, like, I can be funny and a bit cocky and a bit blasé. But overall, like, I think a lot of life is kind of looking around you, listening to what's going on, and really being brave and putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Because the rewards are endless. They really are, you know?
I love it when you say being brave. It kind of ties into another thing that I feel like I've been saying all over for constantly for this last couple of months at least is just being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think is important just in life in general.
Well, I mean, I read your tarot cards last night, so I
Yeah.
know all of that. That's what I'm joking. I'm joking.
Tell me my future.
Oh my gosh. I see a big pandemic looming. Oh my God. I tell you, no horoscope saw that coming, did they? Jesus, here
No.
we are.
No one
No.
did. No one did. So I
Mm.
agree about education, about how important it is. And, I think it's just important whether you are new coming into the industry, because at Mayesh, we do get a lot of new designers. The barrier to entry for the profession is very low, like you just can kind
Hmm.
of start designing. And so
Hmm.
we see a lot of new people come in. And even for veterans, I'll see some people who, maybe feel a little bitter with like new people coming in and things like that, and how they don't know um, floral design and mechanics and the design techniques that you had mentioned, which is not part of my vocabulary. Um, So, what are your suggestions for people who want to invest in education? What should they be looking for? How do they know they're getting quality? And that's something important to us too, because we're kind of play a role in the educational realm. So, yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So I guess my advice would be for anyone kind of starting out in the industry, looking to get their feet under the table, as it were. I
Hmm.
would say take a good look around at the educational options that are available to you. Start with things that are local to you, any local classes, community classes, or local state associations, for example. And then really start to look online because Instagram, Facebook, the internet, there is such a wealth of information out there, available. Even just following some of your favorite designers, watching some of their Instagram lives, watching things on YouTube, that could be an incredible way to start to kind of figure out where you fit in the industry. And what I mean by that is a little bit about what you'll end up doing, as in whether you're working for someone else or working for yourself, or whether or not it's actually a fit for you creatively, as in you'll get to start to piece together the parts that kind of constitute your own design vocabulary. So whether you're really fan of doing very delicate, very light, very airy things, whether you're better with great color, whether you love big chunky hanging installations and event floral design really captures you, it's all about where you fit, and it's all about kind of putting those pieces together to find out the best place for you. When I think about who I would recommend as like a tutor, or how I would go about picking, what courses to attend or what workshops or classes to do, always start by getting as much information as you can about the tutor, right? So
Mhm.
always, if you can, speak to the tutor or speak to the people that are kind of offering the class and find out what level it's at, what topics are going to be covered, and really importantly, what underlying knowledge is going to be offered. Because I think so often what a lot of classes will offer is the how of floral design, like we're going to put this and this together and then it's going to make that.
Right.
And I do think it's so important to pay attention to the why of floral design. Okay, so if we're going to put one and one together, why are we doing that? Why
Right.
are we putting that here instead of over there? Or why are we using this color in relation to this color and this color? All of that has knowledge behind it, right? Like no one just stands there and throws together something beautiful and hopes for the best. In every single composition, we're applying principles and elements, we're applying proportions and placements, and those are the foundations. So if I was starting out, those are the things I would be looking for. I'd be looking for classes that focus on those four key things and seeing whether the tutors that are offering those classes can support the how of the floral design with the why of the floral design as well.
Very good. Are you up for a design question that came in?
10,000%.
All right. So from Texana, she says, "Do you ever use silk flowers ever outdoors if it's hot?" And this ties into another question. We got a bunch of design questions too on our Instagram story that we posted for this
Hmm.
show. I just knew we weren't going to
Great.
have a ton of time, but someone else asked, like, what are your favorite flowers to use when you're designing for an outdoor wedding?
Sure. Okay, so I'll answer Texana's question first and then we'll go from there. So, do we ever use silk flowers? Absolutely, we do. And it's actually part of our sustainability practice is
Mhm.
that we have invested in silk or artificial flowers, and therefore you can reuse them time and time and time again. Um, when it comes to materials that you can use outside, for me, I have like a select group of around about 25 to 30 materials, which we highly recommend can be used time and time again outside, either without a water source or with very little water, in whatever we're making. And I actually know that you guys at Mayesh, you actually have like a resource, right? Like a
We
download or a resource on the
we
materials that you can use outside.
We do. Suma Cleary actually put together reliable products for large scale design. So those
Hmm.
are flowers that can be used inside or out without
Hmm.
water source pretty reliably. So I will post a link for that. I love that you know that.
I love it because my friend made it, so I know about it. But
I
yeah, so
know.
to be honest with you, like I reviewed that list, and I thought it was spot on. I mean, it's very similar for us. we always try to avoid anything that's super delicate or super papery. So anything that's like poppies or hydrangea for us is a no. So we always look to use things like leucadendron or cymbidium or heliconia or Sandersonia or arabicum or any of those like really, really good chunky waxy materials are always, our go-tos for those kind of installations.
Love it. So I also put links for the Reliable Products Guide, guys, in the comment. I put it up on the screen, but also I put up on the screen right now our educational downloads link, which is also in the comments. So because we have a whole sort of a bunch of guides. We have the Reliable Products, we have a garland guide, flower care guide, a rose guide that talks about all of our favorite color varieties, a seasonal product availability guide that has a list. It's not very sexy, but it's a list for every single month of all the different flowers, and also our Mayesh experience. If you're new to Mayesh, you can check us out. So thanks for
You
mentioning
know
it.
what? They're excellent because we actually have a big part of what we do on our website is we have like a section called resources where
Mhm.
we offer free downloads, podcast episodes, care guides, like anything that might be a good resource for a florist starting out. So maybe after this we can link to those as well for people. Like that would be a total pleasure. So if you
Yeah.
head to on our website on josephmassie.com, the resources section, we have similar kind of resources, but I'm sure we can cross pollinate and like that's the type of thing that you need when you're starting out, right? It's those kind of resources that can really give you the upper hand in situations. So yeah, more power to you. I think that's great.
Yeah. And so I did put the link in the comments. I will also put it in our show notes as well for you guys. Love it. Love it. Okay, so we were talking about education. I know you are launching your own online courses. You got to tell us more about that.
Hmm.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, believe it or not, we actually sat down last fall to have a think about putting some of our education online. Simply because it had got to the point where we were booked and busy, and we were getting to the point where there wasn't much more that I could put in the diary, to be honest with you. So, we
Right.
kind of had a look at things and we started to think, would there be a really cost effective way that we could look to share some of this information? Because I'm incredibly fortunate. I get usually when there's not a pandemic, I'm usually able to travel, abroad every month or two to do a project or a workshop or a class or whatever, a lecture or something. However, I can't always do as much as I would like to, and so we sat down last fall to kind of come up with a range of courses that we thought would be really suitable for people to learn online. So actually, we did plan to launch them back in April. A little pandemic put a stopper to that. We didn't think it was the time or the place. So instead, we decided to kind of postpone it just a little bit. And instead, we're launching them on the 1st of July. So our website is learnjosephmassie.com. And we're launching with 6 courses, which are all focused around incredibly commercial designs, all of which are foam free. So all of those designs are as sustainable as we can make them, and they're all really commercial. So they're geared towards people who are just starting out, or maybe established floral designers that are looking to go through some really fantastic commercial designs and, add some bits and pieces to their repertoire.
I love it. I'm super excited. So, everyone that's watching, I'll definitely send out an email on July 1st, and we'll make sure that we share all of that information with you. And of course, we'll have the link up on the blog and everything. But we want to share this exciting news with everyone.
Well, we thank you so much. We also have a pretty exciting thing for your listeners as well, don't we? So I know that when that email goes out on the 1st, we're going to be able to share a super special discount with them as well. So stay tuned for that.
I love it, guys. Exclusive discount for our listeners, our subscribers. Another reason to subscribe to our email list if you haven't already. Love it. Yay. Thank you, Joseph. Well,
Thank you. Pleasure.
we're getting towards the end of the hour. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with our viewers and listeners once this is a podcast?
Oh my gosh, not at all. I mean, I feel like you're my best friend now. Like we know everything about each other, and I feel like we've chatted forever, which is wonderful.
I love it.
I'm more than happy to do some design questions if you want to, or if there's any questions from the people that are watching, I'm very happy to do that as well. Yeah, it's totally up to you.
Awesome. Let me bring up, I put them in and then I took them out. I don't know why I did that. Hold on. Give me 1 second and I will bring up some
No
more.
worries.
Insights. I always complain about Instagram. They're like my nemesis. I love it and I hate it all at one time because they don't make everything easy. You know what I mean? For businesses,
No, I agree.
they really don't.
No, I agree. I wish that it was easier to reply to comments on like a laptop or a desktop
Yeah.
as opposed to kind of, but it really, for me, when I tried, it's very glitchy, like when I try to do that. So, and like I constantly have like 99 plus requests in my inbox, and I'm always like, oh my God, like that would be so much easier if I could do it on a desktop, but here we
Right?
are.
I know. I
Mm.
know. So one of the questions that came through was if you made an all white design, what flowers would you use? And it's funny because on Instagram, you have an all white design, all white flowers, white container,
Uh,
everything.
oh my gosh. Well, what did I say? I read your tarot cards last night. No, I'm joking. Uh, that's a really great question. So what I'll do is I will say Dahlia is probably my answer, and that's pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Simply because they come in so many different shapes, so many different sizes, so many different textures. So when you pick a color palette, even if it's monochromatic, you still can really play around with placements and proportions. What I'll do is I'll give you one little tip as well. Whenever you're working on a floral design and it happens to be monochromatic or analogous, where it's, all one tint, tone, or shade within a composition, always play around with the forms of your design and how densely you're placing your materials. That will be able to help you to place them to give you some dominance and some recession throughout your design. Because I know sometimes it can be tricky. If you're working with just one color or just one flower, it can be super tricky to figure out like where exactly and how exactly you're going to be able to place things. So always pay attention to the form and always pay attention to the space between them. That's a pretty good tip for that.
I love it. So, just in case you guys aren't following Joseph on Instagram, it's Joseph Massie on Instagram and also Joseph Massie Flowers. And if you guys go over to either of those, you'll get to see this beautiful white dahlia arrangement. It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I love it. Okay, so we had another question come in from Cynthia. She said, what would you use as a filler for chicken wire to do a foam-free design?
Oh my gosh, boxwood.
Boxwood?
Boxwood, so boxwood, 10,000%. So for me, that really gets me excited and goose pimply because it obviously it's British, it's a very true British topiary classical material, but it
Mhm.
also helps fill a design so well. And oh my gosh, you can bake that material in an oven a million times over, and it still looks fresh as anything. So boxwood all the way for me.
Love it. So easy. Yay.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's a wrap, guys. I love it. Thank you so much, Joseph, for coming on the show today and sharing your story and all of your wisdom with everyone. It was amazing. Thank you, thank you,
Oh,
thank you.
stop it. Thank you so much for having me. It has been such a pleasure, and I hope to speak to you again at some point in the future. It's been such a joy. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Good. Well, that's a wrap, guys, on today's Mornings with Mayesh. Thank you to all our viewers and our listeners soon, old and new. I really appreciate your time and support. Stay tuned for our next show, which is going to be happening next week. I have Jody Duncan coming on from Design Master, and who's also our past Mayesh design star. We're going to talk about color shifting and how that can help your biz, especially with kind of the logistics and product issues. It's not always a fun day out there for everyone trying to get what they need. So Jody's going to help you with that. And so in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, always feel free to shoot me an email, DM Mayesh, or use our contact form on our website. Stay safe and stay healthy. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.